and effectively use them to achieve and defend their group interest. You want power? This is the way you gotta go. There's no other way. Pleading to some people's moral side, to their humanity, and all this other nonsense ain't gonna get it. You have to realize then, as I wind it up, you see, that this European is set to continue to rule over us. And while we may, and I'm sorry I didn't get around to special ed tonight, I'll get around to it another night. Because remember, in order for this society to rule, it must disenable us mentally. It's a political, economic requirement that black people be mentally crippled in order for the system to exist. It is a requirement then that the methods that this system generates in its effort to so-called treat these disabilities must contribute to the problem, or must not resolve the problem fully. We must understand ourselves as a people. You must get out of this idea that black children come to school behind, already behind. There's no such thing as children coming to school behind anybody. They come to school as they are. They come to school at the point where their culture has brought them. They're not behind. They are who they are. They reflect their cultural experience. They are where they should be in terms of their actual experience and circumstance. But as soon as you see them as coming behind and entering the school behind somebody, as soon as you see them as disadvantaged when they enter the school, you're already in trouble and you've already mentally set yourself up to destroy them. One of these nights I'm going to talk to you about oral culture, because you know we are an oral people. You see, and you got to understand that culture deeply, and the effect it has on thinking, and the effect it has on behavior, you see. And you have to recognize that how it expresses itself in thought forms and in speech forms. The oral culture and the oral orientation develops out of face-to-face cultures. You see, I was talking to a teacher here last week when she was telling me that I teach my students to speak in complete sentences. If they stumble on somebody's toe, I tell them to say, sorry, I am sorry, so-and-so, for stepping on your toe. You know, that's fine. And instead of just saying, well, sorry, okay. However, I'm not condemning her teaching this. In fact, this should be taught. But it's not what you teach as much as the reason for which you teach it. You see? But that is an oral orientation, because that oral orientation is one where people operate in small groups, in face-to-face groups. You see? And in a society that pretty much still has us locked into small groups, so that the people we communicate with, we generally know very well. And we share a history and experience such that we can say one word and they understand a ton of things. You see? And this is the nature of oral culture, you see. And they can say sorry because everybody saw that you stepped on a person's foot. They know whose foot you stepped on. They know who you are and the whole business. So you say sorry. But the other parts of the sentence are what? Implied. You see? Now, when you move into a literate culture, that culture is a culture designed for people to communicate over distance. It's essentially designed for communication between strangers and between people who never met each other, seen each other, who do not share a common background. Therefore, it requires elaborated speech skills and descriptive skills and more precision in expression, because you've got to supply much more of this in order that the person understands what you're talking about. You see, you have to understand this then. When these children walk into this school, you must understand they're not linguistically deficient. There's nothing wrong with their language. You understand? Their language reflects the kind of social environment in which they operate, and it functions efficiently in that environment. They're not behind anybody. They have no neurological defects. They have no problems with their brain. Even the standard psychologist will tell you that 80% of the children who are diagnosed as learning disabled are mixed diagnosed. I'm telling you. But a lot of it is because people do not know the culture and history of the children they're dealing with, and they misinterpret those children. Now then, when you deal with these children and you know that experience, then you know that your place as a teacher there is to meet that child where that child is. And that you're now to take that child across a bridge into new ways of thinking, because now it must confront people who think in a different sort of way. And it must not reject its way of thinking, but it must add on to it an efficiency with new forms of thinking so that it can appropriately deal with people who think in that way and can operate efficiently in their world in terms of its interests. Not because they're going to work for them one day, but because they are going to work them one day. Okay? You got to look at the culture that we're talking about. You have to understand the psychohistory of these children and the psychohistory of African people. That psychohistory then means that the way people think reflects their level of social activity and their social and economic, political role in society. You understand? And therefore, their thought patterns will tend to be correlated with their work patterns and habits and with the roles that they play in the society. That's why I tell you, job discrimination did not only block black people from making money, it also meant that the kind of thinking styles that were attached to various types of jobs were not inculcated into black people because they did not have the responsibilities of those jobs. And it meant then, not having the responsibilities of those jobs, they were unable subliminally and otherwise to pass on to their children the thought patterns connected with those jobs. So ultimately, job discrimination was a way of manipulating and creating a mentality in black people and a thought style in black people. Then you ask for assimilation and entered then into a school system that took certain thought styles for granted and even thought those thought styles came up as a matter of pure development. And when it did not see and does not see these thought styles in your children, it then will evaluate them as being defective, you see, and being deficient. No, they are not. They're not deficient at all. It means then that the school systems themselves must be reorganized. One of the major functions of learning disabilities, the learning disabilities establishment, besides the fact that each learning disabled child is worth $7,000 a year to each school. You understand? $7,000 a year. The number of so-called learning disabled doubled within very short years. This learning disabilities orientation is worth over $13 to $15 billion to the American educational establishment. What did I say earlier? The people are invested in our so-called disabilities. School systems depend on our having these disabilities, ladies and gentlemen. That's why in the end, you've got to change the nature of school organization. And you got to organize these schools in line with your psychology as a people and in line of where you want to go as a people. That means a thorough African-centered education is not only an education that is based upon the history and experience of African people. It recognizes that that history and experience of African people has created in us certain thought style orientations. It has created in us certain learning styles. You understand? Yes. We have been conditioned into thinking and learning in certain sort of ways. So then when we enter into other institutions where people have been conditioned in thinking in other ways, we are put at a so-called disadvantage. So then it means an African-centered theory must develop a theory of learning and a theory of thinking. How do African American people think? How do African American people learn? You got to work this out. You see? Then it must develop a theory of pedagogy, a theory of teaching. How must our children be taught, given their thought and learning styles and motivational styles, in a way that they can become the people we need for them to be in order for us to achieve our liberation? You see, and this is where we have to go. One other thing on top of that, besides dealing with our so-called disabilities, we must look at education in terms of the problems we have to solve as black people. Yes, sir. And let me tell you, we face some enormous problems. The economic bad news is going to really come out after the elections. This economic system is in very, very bad shape. It is also, even